Usually you need a little wind for your white bass fishing to be good, but we don't really have any wind out here to speak of today. But they're just barely getting the end of it. That's why I've lost a couple of fish, and probably the fish I've lost. Look how fat those white bass are, and the bass we've caught, most of them have been kind of skinny. That's good though. We'll take those right there all day long. Hey guys and girls, it is a beautiful fall morning out here on Lake Texoma. That's right, Lake Texoma. That is a giant lake on the Oklahoma-Texas border. And we're going to be trying to catch a few bass out here. As y'all know, if you know anything about Lake Texoma, it is famous for its striper fishing. Literally millions of stripers are in this lake, and they catch them out of here by the thousands every single year. They fillet them and eat them when they catch a limit, but they catch way over a limit almost every single guide trip. My buddy down here, Bill and Chris Carey, they have Striper Express. You want to go striper fishing on Lake Texoma, you give those guys a call for sure. I think we're going to catch them today on a crankbait. If we can find some shad, we might catch, and I saw some shad move right there. If we find some shad, we might catch some on a spinnerbait also. It's a perfect time of the year for both a crankbait and a spinnerbait. Might fish a jig or a worm later in the day. I don't really know. I haven't been on this lake in a couple of years. So we're just going to go looking and finding. One good place to look right off the bat is a point with some big giant boulders on it. Oh, there he is. Pretty nice fish. Yeah, pretty nice fish. What that is, but he's pretty nice. Oh, it's a white bass. It's a white bass. That's a bonus. We'll take them. Well, it might be a white bass or it might be a small striper. Oh, it's a striper. Yeah, it's a small striper. Yeah, we'll take them. Put a little smaller bait on. I'll put a little smaller bait on than I had. Oh. There is supposed to be 3 million. Now, look how healthy that striper is. That striper is very, very healthy. I mean, he's in really, really good shape. Get my little deep smoothie out of his mouth. I caught that fish right here in front of the Oklahoma University Biological Station here in Buncombe Creek. Goodbye, guy. And he hit way out here by the boat. I bet that fish I lost a minute ago was probably a striper also. But this is the Oklahoma University Biological Station. We'll take a look at it. You can't hardly see it. I'm kind of in close there, but they've got rooms for the kids to stay there, and they come down here and learn biology. And Dr. Lauren Hill, my buddy, and he's passed away, but Dr. Lauren Hill used to run, he was the head of the zoology department there at the University of Oklahoma. And I used to come down here and fish with Lauren, and he would bring the kids down here, and of course this is where they learned about biology and zoology and got their degree from the University of Oklahoma. It's a great, great program, an incredible place. And I just had to stop and fish in front of it, just kind of for Lauren's sake. You know, Lauren developed the color selector. It's a 9-year study there at the University of Oklahoma. And I helped him with that quite a bit, not the entire 9 years, obviously. Some of you thinking, it took you 9 years to get through college, Jimmy? No, it did not. 4 years, that's all, 4 years, that's right. But anyway, we developed the color selector there at the University of Oklahoma, and all the tanks that we used was there at OU, but we'd come down here to Texoma a lot, and we'd stay right here at the biological station, and actually fish Lake Texoma, testing the things that we learned in a fish tank, testing them on actual fish out here. And it is it's an amazing deal to take what we learned up there in the tanks and bring them down here and actually put the colors on and test various colors, the best color against another color, and the color that the color selector told us to use would win basically almost every time. I mean, you might be catch like 5 fish to 1 using the correct color, and then we'd swap baits. You know, Lauren and I would fish, and after about 4 or 5 fish, we would swap baits. And when we swapped baits, the other person would end up catching the fish. So color is a really important thing. And of course, right now we're throwing shad colors down here in these deep smoothies because that's what the fish are feeding on. Lots of striper boats around. You see, I can see 3 of them right there in front of me. And they're mostly trolling. We're not going to do trolling. We're fishing for bass, but hopefully we'll catch some of those stripers, and hopefully I'll get one up 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pounds. There's one. Oh, baby. A little one of some kind. Little guy of some kind. I think this might be a white bass. Yeah, now that's a white bass. Now we've caught really largemouth and white bass and stripers, and this is a white bass right here. And white bass used to get really, really big here at Texoma. I mean, they got really, really big, and they were really a popular fish. They used to have a sand bass festival here, and they would catch just literally thousands of them at this sand bass festival. Once they put the stripers in, as the stripers increased, the white bass decreased, kind of like John the Baptist. You know, as Jesus increased, John the Baptist decreased. Well, that's what happened to the stripers, the white bass here. You know, as the stripers got more and more prolific, you got less and less white bass, and you don't catch those great big 2.5 pound white bass. Well, I say that. Now, I shouldn't say that because, you know, I don't fish this lake very much. I haven't been over here in 2 years, but they might catch those big 2.5 pound white bass, but I don't hear about them if they do. Hear a lot about the stripers. So we'll probably catch a Kentucky bass before the day's over, spotted bass. That fish is up there close. I don't know if it's a bass or a white bass or a striper, but he's pulling pretty good. Oh, it's a white. We'll just catch white bass. I like this. I like this. He was up there right on the bank. Usually you need a little wind for your white bass fishing to be good, but we don't really have any wind out here to speak of today. But they're just barely getting the end of it. That's why I've lost a couple of fish. And probably the fish I've lost. Look how fat those white bass are, and the bass we've caught, most of them have been kind of skinny. That's good, though. We'll take those right there all day long. That squirrel, there must be a bass that put an acorn up there on that rock to try to catch that squirrel. I saw a bass one time come up, my head come up, and he laid an acorn right on the end of a big log that went out in the lake. I saw that bass come up there and do that, and I thought, what in the world is going on there? Now, we might have found some white bass, guys. We sure might have. Looky there, looky there. And I went on down the bank, and pretty soon I fished that bass for like 20 minutes and couldn't get a bite. I went on down the bank, and I heard this big splash, and I looked back there, and that bass come up and ate a squirrel that had come out there to get that acorn. And so I went back over there, and I fished and fished and fished. I put on acorn-colored baits, and fished and fished and fished. That's a nice white bass right there. I turned around to leave, and I heard a big splash, and that bass come up and ate another squirrel. I'm lying, I'm dying. Oh, there's one right there. I got a Trotline or something right here. I don't want to get the line in it. I think that's going to be another white bass. He feels like the way he's fighting. I'm loving those white bass. Been a long time since I've caught many white bass. I about forgot. They're getting bigger too, aren't they? I about forgot, really, how much fun they are to catch. They definitely are a lot of fun to catch. A lot of people, I mean, they fish for white bass all the time. You know, they troll for them a lot. It's an easy fish to catch when you find them and get in them. Those are pretty good eating fish too. They're really pretty hard to clean because their bone that you got to cut through there is pretty tough. But that's a 1.5 pound white bass right there. That's a pretty good one. Well, I said I was going to fish this point, and I was going to leave and run down the lake, try to find some largemouth. I'm going to keep fishing this point a little bit more. That's all right, Jimmy. Just talk about moving, running down the lake, and you start catching fish. That's all it takes. Just talk about moving, you start catching them. Not catching largemouth, but who cares? Catching fish, that's all we care about. Yeah, that's all we care about is catching fish. They were definitely doing that for sure. Boy, I'm telling you, those little hooks on that deep smoothie are the most amazing hooks. Another nice white bass. All right, Jimmy, now we're talking. Keep chunking. Keep winding. Ooh, I had another bite right there. What? Oh, one thing good about, oh, he come off. One good thing about white bass is they're school fish, so if you find them, you're apt to find a lot of them. And one of the things that happens in the fall of the year, we used to do it a lot on 10 killers. We'd go into these creeks. And we'd just fish off the bank. We'd get down there and fish off the bank. We'd walk down the bank where we had wind blowing in, and we'd catch all of these big white bass. I mean, lots and lots and lots of them. Golly, that is strong. Well, that's a striper. Now that's a striper there, see? Boy, he's fat too. Look how healthy he is. These stripers are a little bit wilder. And they're a little bit harder to get a hold of. You got to really be careful. You got to really be careful, or you're liable to have a hook in your mouth or in your hand. I guess you could have a hook in your mouth. I guess you could. This guy's got a hook in his mouth. Fish cannot feel pain. Jimmy can feel pain. Hold on to him tight, Jimmy. When you get a hold of those fish, and you see the difference in that fish, see how long he is, those stripes are unbroken? That's a striper right there. And that's a good eating fish right there now, I'm telling you. And they catch a jillion of them out of here. If you're going to come to Lake Texoma fishing, you know, you can always catch a mixed bag of fish down here. This is one of those lakes that's got a lot of different species of fish. A primary fish that they fish for here, in addition to largemouth bass, is a striper. And let me tell you, you can catch stripers really all over this lake. They say they've got 3 million stripers in here. I have no idea who counted them. That's got to be a tough job, but they have a lot of stripers. I know that. They catch literally thousands of them out of here every year. And if you want to be able to find the stripers, you can really kind of watch the birds around where you see seagulls diving down into water. There's some stripers down under where they're doing, because they're going down there feeding on shad, and the stripers are feeding on shad just like the birds are. But one of the things you can do is just get on the rocky banks like we've done today, particularly in the fall, the winter, the early spring. Get on banks and throw a deep diving crankbait. This is a little American Original Deep Smoothie. This is a small size. I've caught more on the small size today than I have the large size. And just start going down the bank. Concentrate on rocky points. Concentrate on rocky points. Keep your eye out for shad. Where you see shad moving, flipping on top of the water, that's where you want to fish. Move kind of fast, just like you're bass fishing. Move kind of fast, cover a lot of water. When you hit a little area and you catch one, slow down, circle around in there, throw all around. And don't be afraid to throw out to the other side of the boat. Throw out to the other side of the boat also. That works really, really well. But you can come to Texoma and you can have a lot of fun. Get back up in some of the major creeks. We've been in Buncombe Creek mostly today, but you can get in the major creeks, you can get out on the main lake. Rocky points are kind of the key things in the fall of the year, and also it works very good in the early spring too. Now, these areas we've been fishing today normally have a lot of largemouth bass. We haven't caught largemouth bass in them today, very many. We caught a few, but not very many, not very big. But Lake Texoma, mixed bag of fish and a lot of fun just about anytime you want to fish it. Give her a try. I love it.